You're at a dinner party. Everyone's laughing. Someone just told a story about their weekend and the room erupts. But you're not laughing. You're watching. You notice how Sarah touched her necklace 3 times while talking about her promotion. How Mark interrupted twice, but no one seemed to mind. How the conversation shifted the moment someone mentioned politics and everyone recalibrated their energy like synchronized swimmers. You see it all, frame by frame, like you're watching a movie you've already seen. And here's the strange part. You're in the scene, but you don't feel like you're of it. You're present, but somehow separated by invisible glass. But here's what most people don't know. This feeling isn't random, and it's far more psychologically complex than you think. If you grew up in the 1980s, there's a 73% chance you felt this exact sensation at least once a week. You're not broken. You're not glitched. You're not socially defective. You're operating on a different frequency. And that frequency was tuned during one of the most psychologically unique decades in modern history. The 1980s didn't just give you neon colors and synth pop. It gave you a cognitive architecture that makes you process the world differently than people born even 10 years later. Let me explain. There's a concept in psychology called the observer effect. It describes how the act of observing something changes the way you experience it. But there's a deeper layer. Neuroscientists call it high-definition cognitive processing. Your brain isn't just watching, it's recording, analyzing, cross-referencing with every social interaction you've ever stored since childhood. And here's the twist. If you grew up in the 1980s, your brain was trained to do this by default. Because the 1980s was the last decade before the digital flattening of human attention. Wait, before you think this is just nostalgia talking, let me get specific. The 1980s child had something no other generation had: boredom with depth. No infinite scroll, no instant dopamine, no instant answers. When you were bored, you had to create meaning from the environment around you. You watched, you listened, you learned to read the room because the room was all you had. But here's the plot twist. That skill didn't disappear when you grew up. It evolved. Let me guess. You can tell when someone's lying, not because of what they say, but because of the micropause before they say it. You notice when a friend uses a word they don't normally use and you file it away as a clue that something's shifted in their life. You get exhausted by small talk, not because you're antisocial, but because your brain is scanning for substance, and finding none feels like running on a treadmill in quicksand. You replay conversations later, not because you're anxious, but because you're solving them, trying to understand the subtext, the pattern beneath the pattern. This isn't social anxiety. This is intellectual hunger disguised as observation. And it comes from a childhood where you had to be your own entertainment system. Wait, before you think it's just shyness, shyness is fear of judgment. What you experience is different. It's cognitive saturation. Your brain is processing 30% more social data than the average person in any given interaction. Tone, timing, body language, word choice, energy shifts. You're not stepping back because you're afraid. You're stepping back because you need processing space. The 1980s was the last analog decade. You grew up reading faces, not screens, interpreting silence, not emojis, waiting for meaning, not swiping past it. Your brain was sculpted by delayed gratification and sustained focus. And now, in a world that rewards neither, you feel like a time traveler who kept their old operating system. You're not an alien. You're not an outcast. You're the pattern seeker. While everyone else is inside the social game, you're the one who sees the shape of the game. You're the architect who notices which walls are load-bearing and which are just decoration. The world doesn't need more players. It needs more people like you, standing just outside the circle, seeing where the circle is headed. This is why you were the kid who saw through trends before they peaked, why you can predict how a conversation will end 3 sentences in, why you feel alone in crowds but perfectly calm in your own mind. You're not missing out, you're compiling. The loneliness you sometimes feel, it's not isolation, it's pattern recognition without a matching pattern. You're looking for people who process the world the way you do. And the truth is, there aren't many. But that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're doing it rare. Here's the thing about being different. It's only a failure if you're trying to be the same. The 1980s gave you a gift, a way of seeing that can't be taught by an app or a tutorial. You were raised in a world that required patience, presence, and perception. And those tools don't expire. They just make you feel out of sync with a world that's forgotten how to wait. So if you've ever felt like you're watching life instead of living it, maybe you're not disconnected. Maybe you're just seeing in high definition while everyone else is streaming in standard quality. And that's not something to fix, it's something to understand. If you want to dive deeper into your own psychology, into why you process the world this way, start by asking yourself, what did I notice today that no one else seemed to see? The answers might surprise you.